Part 39. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 383. You can search for Reincarnation Lord in Baidu to find the latest chapter. Investigators are human. Moreover, most of them do not have extraordinary power. The weapons they mainly rely on are firearms and some psychotropic drugs. Tough spirit, strong physique, and prudent thinking are what they rely on to face cultists, various degenerate organizations, and unspeakable horrors. When an investigator of a secret keeper enters the job, the three things that need to be tested are physical fitness, spirituality, and inspiration. The body is the simplest, and it has been done in the hospital. What is being tested now is spirit and inspiration. The higher the spirit, the stronger the endurance of the investigator. The higher the inspiration, the easier it is to perceive some hidden existence, hear voices that others cannot hear, and see things that others cannot see. For an investigator, the higher the spirit, the better, but not necessarily the inspiration. Is he a writer after all? I have read a report. It is said that people like artists who tend to think emotionally tend to have a higher inspiration value. This is also why the fallen star cult kidnapped artists and used them to listen to and analyze some mysteries' reason. Beside love, a middle-aged researcher with blonde hair and wearing a white coat chuckled and said, "Next, it depends on how long he can last." In addition to the researcher and love, there were many people standing in the observation room, and they were all scoring with serious expressions. This kind of review is a bit primitive, I'd better pretend it. Thinking of this, Fang Xian secretly hid his mental strength while starting to work on the questions. He also doesn't know what the standard is. But hiding half of it should still be feasible. Therefore, when he was halfway through the problem, he got up and slapped the door with an obvious uncomfortable expression. The door opened quickly, and Love rushed in, took him outside, and began to rest. And told him, "It will take some time to wait for the specific review results." After Fang Xian recovered, the two came to the laboratory together. Through the glass, Fang Xian saw two works in the laboratory. One is his own three-line poem. Another one is an oil painting by Simpson. Looking at it now, this abstract painting can only be regarded as mediocre, that is, the colors are too bright, the lines are too distorted, and it lacks the sense of impact it had before. According to the investigation, Simpson used your poems at that time to make everyone present lose the ability to resist. This is a supernatural power. Luo Fu said. Another person was selected in the laboratory and recited the three-line poem in various accents. No problem was found. Later, another control experiment was done. Together with this oil painting, there was a slight change, but only a little bit. According to the researcher, it is the bullet on the oil painting, which has been used up. So, recitation of poems and oil painting can reproduce the scene of that day and make people around you lose their ability to resist? Fang Xian nodded. Unfortunately, Simpson has been beaten to death by you, and the falling star cult has gained something, is it? There are only very few documents, and there is no breakthrough in the interrogation of the captured victims. Love shrugged. However, I feel that the oil painting is not the key, but your poems are the key. Your poems are guns. Oil painting only provides bullets, understand? Each of us has bullets, and that is our spiritual power. So, verses are guns, which can transform our originally harmless mental power into bullets and fire them out. Interesting theory. Fang Xian nodded, marveling at the investigator's sensitivity. In his view, this is also the truth. But we couldn't find that channel. In the process of transforming mental power into bullets, there is still a process missing, maybe a kind of mental frequency, that Simpson has mastered this technology, using oil paintings to transform his spirit into bullets. Unfortunately he died. Love shrugged. You were the one who shot him to death, right? Fang Xian rolled his eyes. I'm just an ordinary person. Faced with a cultist who can display all kinds of supernatural powers, it's safest to kill him. As for the investigation, we can talk about it later. Love said with a bit of vicissitudes, after you become an official investigator, you will understand that this is a wise saying. Okay, what do I need to do? Fang Xian asked a question. Go in, pick up the psalm, and see the difference. Love discussed with several researchers next to him, you may be able to stimulate that kind of power, this is also a test for you. Okay. Fang Xian walked into the laboratory. Instead of looking at the oil painting, he picked up his original poem. I have gone through rebirth and death, but I can't reach the other shore. Death comes chasing after the shadows, without youth you will not perish. This psalm will live on and give you immortality. Although it was written by him, when I looked at these words, I felt very confused. This, somewhat like a message from my true spirit, it seems to be right with me. It's Roka. The inspiration at that time, which captured my true spirit, was influenced to a certain extent. However, at that time, I had already entered the period of extinction and lost my strength, but this verse still has power. So, at that time, he also sensed other existences, other sources of power, and injected new extraordinary power into this poem. The water in this world is a bit deep. Could there be a true God? Maybe, more than one? Did you find anything? Love's voice came from the radio. It feels okay, but I don't know why you made the laboratory into this structure. Fang Xian looked at the laboratory and found that it was somewhat similar to the interrogation room. All the corners in it were also blocked by cement. In short, he just didn't want to show sharp angles. Our architectural style is so natural, there is a certain reason. Anyway, you have almost passed the review, and I can tell you, some supernatural powers can use the mystery of the angle to open the portal and achieve teleportation and other tricks. Our buildings are designed that way to prevent that. Love explained. Angle, teleportation. Interesting. A smile appeared on the corner of Fang Xian's mouth, and he began to appreciate the oil painting. I must once again solemnly warn you that any supernatural power is not free. Most of them tend to be dark and need to pay sacrifices and prices. The reduction of their own spirit and the loss of sanity are only the slightest cases. Love reminded. But at this time, Fang Xian couldn't listen to it anymore. He looked at the oil painting, thinking about the angle and transmission, and a black mist seemed to appear in front of his eyes. The black mist rolled and squirmed, as if something was about to break through. That is. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this, chapter 382 Angle, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Lord of Reincarnation, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 384. You can search for Reincarnation Lord in Baidu to find the latest chapter. Beep. It was as sharp as the sound of fingernails scraping glass, like thin needles piercing Fang Xian's head. He pressed his forehead, forcibly suppressed the irritability in his heart, and listened carefully to the noise. Gradually, in front of him, the illusory black mist was finally broken by a certain existence. It was a terrifying big bird that made people feel fear and despair at the first sight. The black flames were woven into its broken feathers, and on the huge body, where the feathers were difficult to cover, there was a layer of irregular dirty scales. Its pair of bat-like wings were opened at this time, with obvious deformities, as if they had been broken from them. At the same time as this huge creature spread its wings, Fang Xian felt the ear-piercing screeching in his ears suddenly become much clearer. From it, some faint ravings came one after another. Bird with broken wings, pain. Wake up, wake up. Fang Xian was a little dazed, and focused his gaze, and Luo Fu's figure appeared in front of his eyes. What's wrong with me? You suddenly fell into a state of delirium just now. I almost thought you lost your mind and couldn't be saved. Love took a long breath, but at this time his movements were very indecent, and he raised his right hand high, as if Fang Xian didn't when he woke up, he was about to slap him. Loss of sanity? Fang Xian murmured, recalling his state just now. Something was indeed wrong. This is a common encounter with our investigators. Most of them can be answered, but there are also permanent ones. Then they will become a complete lunatic and can only be locked up in the Huishan madhouse. Love sighed. What did I just do? Fang Xian looked at his right hand, which was actually holding a pen. You are creating. Love pointed to a line of words. It was a line written in the margin of his 3-line poem. The bird with broken wings is my name, it eats your pain to feed my heart. A bird with broken wings that feeds on pain? Fang Xian looked at Luo Fu. Don't look at me, this is what you wrote. In the investigator's profile I've read, there should be no such person. Love shook his head. How do you feel now? Do you want a sedative? I'm fine, I feel, this is what we are looking for, that frequency, the method of transforming mental power into specific bullets, and firing them with 3 lines, of course, different firearms require different bullets, so this spirit of transformation should only be suitable for the incantation of these 3 lines. Fang Xian expressed his feelings. The power contained in these 3 lines of poetry is similar to the bird with broken wings, should come from the same source of power. Why, do you think they come from a source of power, not from a bird with broken wings? Love asked a key question with a serious expression. Intuitively, Fang Xian thought for a while and said, I feel that this kind of bird is probably at the level of a servant, it can't reach the edge of a great existence. Your inspiration is a little too high. Love had a tangled expression on his face. Can you feel synesthesia and foresee some pictures? Accepting information that ordinary people cannot accept, it's too dangerous. But, there's always something to gain, isn't there? Fang Xian smiled. In the future, we can use these spells to fight. No, its danger has not yet been proven, a lot of research is still needed. In fact, unless it is really dangerous, we recommend investigators to use technology instead of supernatural forces to fight. Love shook his head quickly. Okay, experiment. Fang Xian was eager to try. Do you need me to use a spell? No need for now, your spirit is too excited, you need to rest, and you need to do another sanity assessment. Love put a straight face on his face, and directly drove Fang Xian out of the laboratory. Alas, the investigator is too cautious in the way of the extraordinary. Lying in his room, Fang Xian sighed. However, the extraordinary power in this world tends to be dark, so it is good to be cautious. He glanced at his attribute bar. Name, Fang Xian, Luo Ka. Occupation, Alchemist, Level 6 Death. Spell, Immortal Psalm, Bird with Broken Wings. Alchemy, Taoism, Martial Arts, Weird. Sure enough, it has been recognized. It is indeed extraordinary power, a spell. Is it the way of this world? In this world, there doesn't seem to be any concept of extraordinary professions. Investigators are not extraordinary professions, but the perseverance of ordinary people. Do you want to pursue some evil organizations? However, most of them were chased and beaten by investigators, and their strength was even worse. I'm afraid, I have to accept that there are no specific supernatural professions in this world. Without professions, there is no clear system and clear way to improve. Sure enough, chaos and darkness are the themes of supernatural power. I can't do this. Could it be that I integrate a profession or system myself? Using spells to fight, reciting poems, called bard? Or writer? Fang Xian thought wildly for a while, then took a deep breath, and recited softly, the bird with broken wings is my name, eat your pain to feed my heart. There was silence in the room, Nothing unusual. No response. No. It's because I'm in the wrong state of chanting, the bird with broken wings needs pain, my own pain. Fang Xian struck directly and pinched himself hard. At the moment of severe physical pain, he felt that his mental power had changed inexplicably. Sharper, darker, and easier to manipulate. If at this time, if you recite the immortal psalm, you should be able to release your spirit and hurt the enemy. But, the pain is not enough, this level, even Simpson can't compare to that day. Fang Xian recalled it again and found the problem, more pain is needed. And, the pain that is more painful than the body is the pain of the spirit. There is some longing in his heart, as if he is ready to pursue this power at all costs, even if he hurts himself or destroys his own spirit. In the darkness, there seemed to be invisible eyes opening, and there was a raving sound. Only through pain can one touch greatness. Only darkness can involve the extraordinary. Come on, embrace it, enhance it. You will be immortal. I got your sister, Fang Xian complained. His eyes woke up instantly. He looked around, everything was normal. He couldn't help but touched his chin. That's not right. If I continue to practice like this, I will really become a person who likes self-mutilation. What a lunatic, the supernatural power in this world, what a mess. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this, chapter 383 Bird with Broken Wings, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Lord of Reincarnation, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 385. You can search for Reincarnation Lord in Baidu to find the latest chapter. Wait a minute, let me stroke. Fang Xian checked the room carefully again, but found nothing abnormal. It seemed that the strangeness just now and the whispers I heard were all hallucinations caused by mental changes. At this time, he no longer tried the spell, and lay on the bed, thinking silently. The cultivation of spells is too bad. Now I am just an ordinary person, even if the average quality is a little higher than that of ordinary investigators, I might go crazy. Wait a minute, do I have special abilities? It can be said that the immortal psalm was obtained in a ceremony last time, what about this time? From the oil painting, I got a spell with supernatural power? Could it be, is it something special brought about by my own personality? Although my tribulation power has been abolished, I am still at the 6th level of an alchemist in any world. I can call it a hidden existence, the kind that can accept prayers and respond to believers within a certain range. The most useless hidden existence in history? However, as long as the status is high enough, it is possible to reverse analyze some content from items and spells, and even suppress some supernatural powers whose status is lower than mine. You can try it another day. At the same time, a file was also passed to Love in the meeting room. Spirit 87, Inspiration 93. These statistics are a bit scary. Some veteran investigators are nothing more than that. He muttered, turned to the back, and there were some case records about the fallen star cult. So, what about sanity? 50. Excellent. The researcher in a white coat replied, especially, after experiencing a delirium in the laboratory, the test results prove that he is still very healthy. So, did you decide to absorb it? A bearded investigator nodded. The household survey also came out. The interpersonal relationship is not complicated. I was born in the CAM orphanage with excellent grades. I was recommended to the liberal arts college and worked as a work-study student. I have paid off my student loans. Another investigator said. Let me mention one thing, the other party is a little obsessed with supernatural power, This is also reflected in the questionnaire, and, creating inspiration is too dangerous. So far, in just a short time, 2 spells have been created, this too frightening. Another old man with a white beard objected, perhaps, imprisonment and custody are the best way to deal with it. I object, we don't have the power to do that. Love said quickly. We have the right, as long as we confirm that the other party is dangerous enough, even endangering the safety of the world. Love, as an investigator, you should know the horror of that kind of thing. As a human being, it is invisible, unknowable, and unimaginable, any signs of danger must be guarded and kept secret. The old man said solemnly. Ahem, according to the personality test of the other party, as well as the analysis of past behavior, I don't think the target has a harmful personality tendency, of course, it's only at present. A researcher commented. And, we need him, the remnants of the fallen star cult, maybe we will find him, of course, it can't be a heavily guarded prison cell, we need him to go out, we need to create a loophole. Another investigator said. Then, let's vote, those who agree with Roca to become an investigator, please raise your hand. Love put down his pen and raised his palm. Several people in the conference room raised their hands one after another. 6 votes were in favor, 2 votes abstained, and 1 vote was against. The proposal was passed. A smile appeared on the corner of Love's mouth. I will report to my superior immediately. He stood up, picked up the phone on the desk, and dialed the number with the rotary dial. Toot. The other side quickly connected, and a gentle and deep man's voice came out, Orsay branch? Password. We are keepers of secrets, we keep secrets, we restrain ourselves, and we are loyal to human beings. Love recited the secret keeper's motto in a deep voice. Confirm your sanity, Love, what's the matter? The gentle voice on the other side continued to ask. Love's waist was slightly bent, even if the other party was not in front of him, there was still a look of reverence on his face. With all due respect to the top of the keeper, the legendary investigator, Clark Carter. Our branch is going to recruit a secret keeper, his name is Roca. Love reported the matter again. I agree with this decision, let's implement it like this, but every keeper needs to undergo strict training first, so as to avoid falling into a bad situation during the first investigation. For any novice, the first 3 the missions are extremely dangerous, and we secret keepers cannot fail even once. Clark Carter said in a calm but firm voice, Love, you will be Roca's mentor and partner, take care of him, we secret keepers also need new blood. Follow your will. Love quickly agreed. I'm just an ordinary investigator, so you don't need to be so polite. Clark Carter on the opposite side smiled, okay, I still have a task to investigate, and I'll leave it to the Orsay side. Here you go. Please rest assured, Your Excellency. Everyone stood up, looked at Love and hung up the phone. So, no more comments? Love looked around, this time, I will lead the newcomer. Of course, the old man's face was a little stiff, and finally he squeezed out a smile. Swear to me, after you swear, you will be the mysterious person. The next day, Fang Xian got up in the morning, and before he brushed his teeth, he was taken to the office by the serious-looking Love, and solemnly made the oath and kept the promise. So, can we deal with abnormal affairs? Fang Xian was a little excited when he received the new clothes. No. You still need to study and practice hard. You are too young now. Love shook his head, as if looking at a rookie. Starting today, we will conduct fighting and gun training in the morning, and study psychology and interrogation in the afternoon. In the evening, I will take you to analyze the mysterious files. Dossier, about supernatural powers? Fang Xian's eyes lit up, didn't it mean that there are some existences, and the more you know, the more disasters you will bring? Of course there are, but there are also some ordinary ones that can be understood and will not cause loss of sanity. Love said, "We have carefully selected these, which can increase your experience." Having said this, he suddenly got stuck. Obviously, with the psychic symptoms that Roca showed before, he really can't guarantee whether the other party will have some inexplicable feelings when he comes into contact with some information that investigators think is harmless. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this, chapter 384 formal, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Lord of Reincarnation, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 386. Reincarnation Lord, find the latest chapter. After becoming a trainee investigator, Fang Xian's life suddenly became extremely fulfilling. Exercise every day, practice guns, and study various courses. Although he has turned back into an ordinary person, he is also a perfect person among ordinary people, and these naturally cannot trouble him. Although the learning progress has been deliberately slowed down, it still amazes Love. What Fang Xian looks forward to the most is naturally the file declassification class every night. With the power of the Secret Keeper organization, how many secrets have been guarded? What I saw by myself was probably only the content that the lowest level of authority could view, but even so, it was weird enough. Through the dusty files and the confessions of the parties involved, Fang Xian saw all kinds of weird things hidden under the surface peace and development of this world. Ordinary people may fall into the abyss of eternal sinking just because they read a certain book out of curiosity, walked into a certain corner, and saw a certain picture. No. Even if you avoid everything, some things will come to you on their own initiative, there is no reason at all. Thinking of this, Fang Xian spread out a yellowed document. Code name, Schindler's Farm. Danger level, low. Confidentiality level, ordinary investigators can read it. Participants, Investigator Kent, Farmer Schindler. Specific description, received a report from Schindler's farmer, suspecting that a thief stole the goats in his pasture. 2 police officers disappeared one after another. Schindler's farmer became crazy, and had a very strong attachment to things and words like mice. Fear response. Case summary, the culprit is an ugly mole with a human face. After the efforts of the Kent investigators, the strange rat's nest has been found and eliminated. Remarks, after the incident, the Kent investigator had a slight mental problem, so he entered a nursing home and recuperated for a year. He turned to the end. It was found that there was a black and white photo, which was a mouse with a human face on its back. Those eyes seemed to reflect the light of the camera and became very bright. A little bit of synesthesia, if you're serious, maybe you can get some information and write a line of poetry. This is equivalent to a spell, and the effect is probably to summon a mouse with a human face. Fang Xian glanced at Luo Fu, who was waiting solemnly beside him, and wisely chose to give up, not going deep. How do you feel?" Love asked nervously. "I don't feel much, this mouse is pretty ugly." Fang Xian put down the black and white photo. It seems that it was because of poor exposure. He felt that the mouse's head also seemed a little weird, the white spots were distorted, and it looked like a mask. "No, I can't watch anymore." He turned his head and saw that Luo Fu was about to stand up. He couldn't help being surprised. "What are you doing?" "Put down the syringe, I'm fine, really." "Really, are you sure?" Love looked suspicious, as if he was looking for a suitable place to give the needle. "I'm sure, really." Fang Xian quickly closed the file. "How did you solve this case in the end?" "It seems very simple." Because the person involved entered the nursing home, the subsequent confession was also very vague, and some memories were forgotten, but most of these monsters can be solved with guns, and follow a certain scientific structure. This is our luck. Love replied. Use firearms. Fang Xian thought for a while. I feel that they may not be perfect bodies, nor mature bodies, maybe it's just a kind of projected, summoned power that induces the original ordinary mice to mutate. The legendary investigator, His Excellency Clark Carter, has the same views as you. Love nodded. Legendary investigator? Fang Xian's expression changed. He is a living legend. He has solved a lot of treacherous cases. He has seen the real abyss and horror, but he still maintains his sanity. It is rumored that he also maintains friendship with some supernatural creatures and masters ritual magic power beyond imagination. Of course, that requires a more determined brain and heart, so as not to be eroded by the evil power in magic. Love reverently said, this legendary investigator is still active on the front line. He is my idol. Admirable. Fang Xian pretended to be very respectful, but he was thinking about what kind of power that Clark Carter possessed. Although the high-end power in this world is very powerful, it is too chaotic and does not seem to have a complete system, but it is also true, for ordinary people, any supernatural power can easily destroy them, no matter how strong it is. Anyway, it is death, disability, and madness. Okay, let's move on to the archives. Love coughed and continued today's study. Fang Xian opened a new file, started to browse, and occasionally asked some questions. Love gave detailed answers. In this way, he had a deeper understanding of the investigator's responsibilities and behavior. The treacherous files of Bo Yun were displayed in front of Fang Xian, revealing the dark corner of the world, allowing him to see the hidden fear and horror. Wickle Giant sightings. The evil spirit in Yulin Street's dream. Strange hounds chasing death. Crazy classics. Some of them have been completely resolved, and some have only been suppressed temporarily, and they still need regular observation and monitoring. Let Fang Xian feel that this world has not been destroyed. How lucky. At this moment, he put his palm on a file, and suddenly felt his heart beat a little faster. Supernatural power? No, it aroused a little breath in my body. Very strong feeling. With a blank expression on his face, he opened the file and saw the name. Code name, Footless Bird. It tells about a giant footless bird that appeared on the western plains. According to the description, the appearance of this giant bird is extremely ugly, and it can cause nightmares for those who see it. Investigators at the time did not resolve it, but instead witnessed the creature break through the trap and fly away. This giant bird has been flying and never stops according to speculation. Perhaps letting it stop on the ground is a kind of restraint. The footless bird is currently missing. If investigators find it, report it immediately. At the end of the file, there is a line of red letters. Is it an internal wanted? Fang Xian closed the file with a smile, confirming that the described footless bird is somewhat similar to the bird with broken wings, and there may be some connection between the two. The bird with broken wings in his vision also seems to have no feet. And, he confirmed that this is a good offer. If you read it a few more times, you will probably be inspired to impromptu a spell. It's worth investigating. The suspicion is related to the source of power of the immortal Psalm and the broken-winged bird. If a new spell is created, it probably has something to do with it. He pushed the file back and saw that Love's expression was slightly unnatural. This is probably still a test for me. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this. Chapter 385 Archives. Congratulations to the leader of Shubai, Reading Records. You can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Lord of Reincarnation, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 387. Reincarnation Lord, find the latest chapter. The high-level investigators are not completely relieved of me. Also, after all, I belong to a risk factor, But why didn't I be imprisoned directly? In order to let me go out and continue to attract the remnants of the fallen star cult. Fang Xian saw something, but pretended not to know, and organized the files one by one. Ahem, Roca, you have been studying here for a month in isolation, it's time to go out and enjoy your vacation. Love announced with a cough. Holiday. Yes, most investigators are under a lot of pressure, so every once in a while, they must take mandatory vacations to prevent loss of sanity. Speaking of this, Love added meaningfully, spirit and inspiration may have no upper limit, but among the keepers, we divide the sanity value into 3 stages, 0 to 35 is red, 35 to 65 is green, 65 to 100 is still red. The closer to 50, the darker the green, and the closer to 0 and 100, the deeper the red. It feels a little strange. Isn't the higher the rationality, the better? Fang Xian asks strangely. Balance. Balance is the most important thing. We humans have a certain degree of sensibility, how can we be absolutely rational? In this regard, there is a bloody lesson, that was before the standard came out, a person who couldn't name the legendary investigator, who thinks he has found the path of absolute rationality, has raised his sanity to 100 through various methods. Love's voice was low, then, he also went crazy. Crazy because of absolute rationality, because he has no emotion and no goal to protect, he becomes indifferent to his relatives, becomes extremely cruel and indifferent, and no longer obeys the rules of guarding. The motto of the secret man, it has been proved afterwards that absolute rationality is not desirable, and maintaining balance is the key. We need rationality, and we also need to be moved to bring strength to our hearts. After the vigorous promotion of His Excellency Clark Carter, the new standard was established. So, this is where the mandatory vacation system comes from. Fang Xian said that he understood. Yes, although you have not carried out the work of investigating the case, you have been exposed to too many files, this may also unknowingly put pressure on your spirit. My suggestion is to relax, a concert, a drunk, or a date with a cute girl, Love suggested. In short, don't think about these files for a while, and of course, don't forget our non-disclosure agreement. Of course. Fang Xian nodded. Before returning to the apartment building he rented again, Fang Xian actually felt as if he had passed away. He came to the door, took out the key to open the door, and found many letters lying on the carpet. Most of it comes from editorial reminders, or contacts from friends, and some utility bills. The house rental fee is settled every 6 months, so Fang Xian doesn't have to worry that the landlord will evict him if he doesn't live for a month. Inside the house, the furnishings were the same as before Roca left, except for a layer of dust. Fang Xian opened the refrigerator, and shook his head helplessly. It stinks, throw it away, and try another batch. Oh, I think, as an investigator, it's better to live in the branch all the time. If you love your job and work hard, why do you force me to take a vacation? He complained, lifted the sleeves of his hands, and started cleaning. After throwing away all the trash, Fang Xian sat back at the desk and began to read letters one by one. Don't look at those reminder bills, just pay them another day. There are also letters from some friends, which need to be answered one by one, and there may be hidden temptations from the falling star cult. Finally, there are still routine reminders from publishers and magazines. It's not that Raka is so famous, it's just that there was an agreement before that he must provide a certain number of words of manuscripts every month. Currently, Raka still has a novel and an essay in serial, and he needs to provide poetry drafts to 2 newspapers every month. Annoying. I don't want to do it anymore. Fang Xian pouted, but still didn't directly write a letter to refuse. Investigator is a good move, but no salary, no salary, no salary. Say important things 3 times. Although the headquarters is responsible for the board and lodging of the investigators, and occasionally gets a lot of money from the owners of supernatural cases, but it is very rare after all. I also need a part-time job, and at the same time avoid being out of touch with society. Although, investigators are generally out of touch with society, appearing to behave strangely, similar to mental patients. But, writing still needs to be maintained, some plans can probably be implemented through it. Fang Xian looked at his attribute bar. I am also a 6th level hidden existence now, although it may be the most useless one in history, my personality is still there after all, and I can accept prayers within a certain range and respond to it. Believer. The supernatural powers in this world are a bit of a pitfall. For example, the spell of the bird with broken wings requires sacrifice of pain. The pain is not enough, and the spell is not powerful. So, can I collect all kinds of negative emotions from readers and use them as a medium for me to cast spells? As a person who exists in secret, this should be possible. As for how to collect it? Who can't write a sadist text? This is mental pain, and the quality is probably better than physical pain. Well, I hope not. Readers will send me blades, and that's okay, they don't know my address. The Abuse Masters article is easy to write, but how to write it wonderfully, so that readers can't stop reading it while cursing, and finally feel sad and painful with the characters in the book, it's a bit particular, you have to put some thought into it, otherwise no one will read it, it's useless if no one follows it up. When they feel sad, painful, when they have all kinds of negative emotions because of reading, they may be passed on to me through my pen name, as my resources for casting spells. Well, there are only enough persons, to be able to accept the presence of prayer is to do that. In this regard, be careful with the investigators, but it doesn't matter, my tragic novel will definitely pass the review, because it does not contain a trace of supernatural power, it will not reveal anything, it is simply to make readers feel sad and painful. A reader's share doesn't need to be too much, and it won't have any real impact on the other party, but the savings will definitely exceed the limit of what I can do alone. Starting today, I'm going to transform into a tragedy or horror author. Why, I'm a little excited when I think about it. Fang Xian slowly perfected his plan, and then looked at his friend's letter. Most of these came from Stuart and his friends at the party. They came to ask about their own situation, and Fang Xian replied casually. In addition, there are some invitations. Most of them are out of date, and only one is still valid, which is to invite him to an art exhibition in Orsay. Look at the signature, it's Shayla. The object of Stuart's admiration, I seem to smell the smell of dog blood. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this, chapter 386 The Big Plan, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Lord of Reincarnation, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 388. Reincarnation Lord, find the latest chapter. After perfecting the plan, Fang Xian turned into a ruthless coding machine. In just one night, I wrote a thick stack of manuscripts, not only completing the original Raka's novels, but also writing the beginnings of several new horror and tragic novels, and preparing to submit them to the publishing house. As for short poems, with such a terrifying thing, it's better not to challenge love's sensitive nerves. After finishing all this, he had a good sleep, and when he woke up, it was already afternoon. Holding a thick stack of envelopes, he drove into his own car, drove to a supermarket dozens of miles away to do shopping, and delivered the letter by the way. Well, this is the virtue of Orsay city. The place is too big and the population is too small. Even if you go shopping, you have to drive for half an hour. Without a car, it is almost impossible to move an inch. Moreover, the wealthy here prefer to live in the suburbs, away from the city and close to nature. The closer you are to the city, the more you can see a large number of slums, and the pollution is very serious. About 2 hours later, he came back with a thick paper bag in his arms, put the milk, bread, and fresh meat in separate categories, and fried a small steak for himself, served with French fries and tomato sauce for dinner. Love didn't jump out to review my manuscript. Isn't he afraid that I will leak the secret? No, no, with the investigators' caution, they probably have special reviewers in various influential newspapers and publishing houses. While cutting the steak, Fang Xian thought about the investigator's possible reaction and his own goal. The purpose of writing horror and tragic novels is to improve your strength, so that you will not be killed by sudden abnormal situations, so that you can work as an investigator longer. After working as an investigator for a long time, I will definitely come into contact with different supernatural powers. At that time, maybe I can choose a path, slowly improve, and after reaching a sufficient level, I can try to solve my path problem. The jelly is still at the 6th level, but it's too bad. How can you improve when the jelly is gone? Could it be that he has been stuck in the 6th level, being an ordinary person? What I created, is it a dead end? The way of Deluo. Is it that simple? No matter how much I deduce it before, it is better to experience it myself. After eating and drinking, Fang Xian took a bath and fell asleep quickly. Before falling asleep, he made a decision to agree to Shara's invitation to visit the art exhibition. A sunny day. Fang Xian drove to the urban area. The barren scene on both sides receded quickly, the outline of a city gradually emerged, and the shadows of black buildings became taller and taller. This is the city of Orsay, a coastal city with a not particularly developed economy, known for its tourism and fishing industries. At the same time, there are several well-known art colleges here, so it is also rich in artists and literature lovers. After parking the car, he saw Shayla and Stuart. Shara was wearing a white dress and a parasol, looking very youthful and beautiful. With an exaggerated hairstyle, Stuart came up and gave Fang Xian a hug. "Raka, sorry, it was my fault at the last party, that made you stay in the hospital for so long." What happened with Simpson last time has been settled. Even Stuart thought that he had misjudged Simpson and harmed a bunch of people. This caused him to have a very bad reputation in the social circle, and few people are willing to continue to be friends with him. Fine. Fang Xian took out the invitation letter that came with the letter. "Let's go, the organizer of this art exhibition is a newcomer?" "Yes, his name is Devin, and he is a talented sculptor." Xiala chuckled lightly. One of his works once sold for a high price of 1,000 gold pounds. Many admirers recognize his talent and believe that he has the potential to catch up with Master Capro. Capro. This world-renowned sculpture master in the history of the world, a great artist whose name goes down in history. Its style is famous for its changeable magnificence, bold and unrestrained. It's a pity that he fell into madness in his later years, and died of madness after completing a work. Fang Xian's evaluation of this master emerged in his heart, and he couldn't help but shudder. The profession of artists is too dangerous in this world. They generally have high inspiration and are prone to contact with some abnormal and weird things. Maybe they will actively and fanatically pursue it, and regard it as a source of inspiration and creation. "Well, I can't wait to see you." With a chuckle, he followed Shara and Stuart into the venue. On both sides of the venue, there are plaster statues of various shapes. They have portraits, animals, and some abstract works. Although Fang Xian doesn't know how to appreciate them, he still feels that these sculptures are very vivid. And, it's normal. Nothing special enough to trigger my creative cravings. Fang Xian commented in his heart. Whether it can inspire his creation is regarded by him as the criterion for judging whether it belongs to supernatural power. In front of the exhibition hall, there is a small stage. At this time, an old man in a black suit was making his final statement to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, please let me introduce you, the sculptor Duan. He is a celebrity in the city, and he took the initiative to stand for Devon, which is very good for instant fame and fame. It's really enviable and enviable. He has achieved success at such a young age." Stewart looked at Devon, who came out. It was a young man in his 20s, tall and thin, wearing a tuxedo, with thin cheeks and sunken eyes. He seemed to have not slept well last night due to nervousness. Of course, the audience present understood him very well and gave him warm applause. "Thank you for coming to my sculpture exhibition. Orsay is a city of hospitality, and I am deeply in love with this land. Here, I would also like to thank my teacher, my guide." Devon grabbed the microphone and stammered. "Yeah, we want to hold a book signing, don't know when it will be." Fang Xian pretended to be bored and shrugged his shoulders. "I want to go and have a look around, you can feel free." He walked through one exhibition hall after another, looking at those different sculptures, suddenly inspired. When he followed this feeling and walked to the door of a studio, the throbbing stopped. "Is there something in the door?" Fang Xian's eyebrows moved, but he didn't rush in. He is just a rookie trainee investigator now. He knows a few spells. Other than that, even his own personality is false. This means that my high status is like a dragon's majesty, or the threat of a tiger. It's no problem to scare rabbits and mice. If you encounter a pack of wolves or another tiger, you will not be afraid at all, and you will just pounce on it, and you will find that it's a paper tiger. It will break if you poke it. At this time, he is not yet sure enough to deal with the danger brought by supernatural power. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this, chapter 387 Sculpture, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Lord of Reincarnation, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 389. Reincarnation Lord, find the latest chapter. "Sir, I'm sorry, this is Mr. Devon's private studio, which is not open to the public." Just as Fang Xian was about to leave, a group of people came over, and a staff member at the head hurried forward. "Oh, I'm a little immersed in the great works of art, and I'm a little lost, sorry." Fang Xian apologized politely, turned and prepared to leave. Roca, Stewart and Shara were also among this group of people. They surrounded Devon and seemed to be having a very pleasant conversation. "Wait a minute, Mr. Devon, this is the friend I mentioned just now, and I want to introduce you to Raka, an outstanding writer." Shara enthusiastically introduced the two sides. "Hello, Mr. Raka." Devon smiled and said hello. "You can just call me Roca, Mr. Duan." Fang Xian had to stop, and sighed secretly in his heart. This Yala and Stewart really go where there is an abnormal situation. "Raka, would you like to visit my private studio?" Duan seems to be in a bad mood, and only when he mentions his work and his own works, his eyes are full of enthusiasm. "The works you saw before are far from being great. Will it be too intrusive?" Fang Xian turned his head and looked at the door. Rustle. Rustle. In his ears, there seemed to be the sound of some insects twisting their bodies. Creamy, twisted, disgusting. It seems that behind this door, there is an unspeakable horror lurking. No, no. I originally wanted to show my new friends a tour of my studio. There are no privacy or precious items in it, only a semi-finished product. Devon is reserved and authentic. It's such an honor, I can't wait." Shara covered her lips with her hands and let out a pleasant laugh. "Ha ha, please." Devon took out a bunch of brass keys, found one of them, and opened the door lock of the studio. What appeared in front of everyone was a small studio. The surrounding wooden shelves are filled with carving utensils such as plaster, tool hammers, and carving knives. There are some papers piled up messily on the ground, covered with lime and other colors of seasonings, and there are some abandoned sculptures in the corners. Most of them are incomplete semi-finished products. There is a woman with a broken arm, a man with only half a face, and a child with a strange smile. At first glance, it gives off a horrifying atmosphere, as if a bunch of real human limbs were randomly discarded in a garbage dump. Oh! Is this the sculptor's studio? I think we have something to brag about at the reception. Shara and a few women looked around curiously, and finally looked at the center of the studio. There is also a sculpture there, covered with a white cloth. Fang Xian lowered his head slightly, as if admiring the white spots on the ground, but in fact, his inspiration had already been strongly touched. The scary thing behind the door is that semi-finished sculpture covered in white cloth. In his eyes, that layer of white cloth seemed to cover endless terror, and thousands of worms seemed to be wriggling underneath. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you a truly great work of art, though only half finished. Duan became strangely excited, grabbed the white cloth, and gently opened it. What appeared in the eyes of everyone was a semi-finished head portrait of an old man. The main body of the old man's head is composed of gray-white plaster that looks like stone, and every detail is perfectly presented according to the true ratio of 1:1. The old man's facial features are profound, with some edges and corners of plaster, which are blurred and not fully formed. But his hair was wild, and his beard fell long and grotesquely twisted, thick as worms. Generally speaking, this is a weird image with blurred features, beard and hair like worms constantly climbing, wriggling, twisting, and knotting. The old man's mouth was wide open, and his tongue hadn't been carved yet. But in Fang Xian's eyes, the old man's head seemed to come alive, and the unfinished tongue also turned into a thick and wriggling flesh worm. Huge, worm, him. Some strange words have come to his mind. It seems that with just one more pen, a line of poetry can be created on the spot. No. Not here. Fang Xian lowered his head and didn't look at the stone sculpture. His spirit immediately calmed down a lot. It's definitely a supernatural power, but it feels a bit different from the bird with broken wings. This. Facts have proved that it is difficult for ordinary people to accept this work. Even if it's just unfinished, some women feel uncomfortable. This work is called, The Man of the Worm. It was inspired by some manuscripts left by the greatest sculptor in history, Mr. Caprow. Devon's introduction is generally authentic. I got some of them, and I got inspiration from them by studying them. What do you think? Is it that Master Caprow who has an ominous old age? An old man obviously has a lot of research on this. I remember that the last work of Master Caprow seems to be related to bugs, but it is a pity that in history, the sculpture of doom was sealed or closed after it was completed. It was destroyed, and the photos were not even published in newspapers. I still read some corresponding introductions from a gentleman's private diary. It is said that the work makes people feel great and realize their own small. He looked at the semi-finished stone carving. His expression gradually became a little obsessed. It's like this, so it's like this. An idiot who found that his sanity has dropped. Fang Xian memorized the image of this old man, and when he was about to go back, he asked for his name and asked the investigator to come and read the water meter. Immediately, he found that the eyes of the people around him gradually changed from disgust, with some curiosity, some inquiry. Perhaps it won't be long before all of these gazes turn into fanaticism. Even Stuart and Shara had obsessed expressions at this time, as if those worms that made up their hair and beard were so beautiful. Ahem. Fang Xian leaned over and bumped into Stuart hard. Stuart. What's wrong? My friend? Stuart dealt with it casually, unwilling to take his eyes off the sculpture. I think we bothered Mr. Devon for too long, and we can't affect his work and exhibition, especially Shara. Fang Xian deliberately stimulates the person Stewart cares about. His 1-month psychological assault training was not for nothing. Yes, and Shara. Stewart finally moved his eyes away from the statue, saw the obsessed Shayla, and suddenly felt a sour feeling in his heart. We should go, yes, we should go, no, let me take another look, just a glance. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this, chapter 388 manuscript, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Lord of Reincarnation, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 390. Reincarnation Lord, find the latest chapter. Raka, Stewart, what are you doing? Shayla, who was forcibly pulled out of the exhibition, complained, I want to appreciate that work one more time, you are desecrating art. She was really angry, her little face was flushed because of this, and her eyes glanced back involuntarily. It seemed that the semi-finished sculpture was really attractive to her. The first stage, addiction. Looking at this scene, Fang Xian suddenly thought of a case of the investigator. That was a real case that happened in other cities. Some ordinary items suddenly took on a magical charm. In the beginning, people were just addicted to them and were willing to pay top dollar for them. Gradually, the obsession deepened, turned into mania, and turned into an unwillingness to let them out of sight for a moment. Even at the expense of stealing and killing people. If the investigators hadn't acted quickly and destroyed those items, I don't know what kind of chaos would have happened. According to the investigation report, no matter how the items were tested, they were ordinary things, including a stone in a cesspit. If you appreciate it for a while, you will quickly reach the second stage obsession, and then fanaticism, and you must get it at all. Fang Xian shook his head, and said to the two friends, I suddenly thought, I still have something to do, so let's separate first. Raka, you. Stewart looked at his friend's back, unable to tell whether he was moved or angry. Normally, he would not want Roka to be a light bulb. But now, Xia La's temper is a little bit big, and he can't bear it alone. It is confirmed that the statue is a supernatural item, and the impact varies from person to person. Stewart is obviously better. Fang Xian quickly stepped into an alley. After confirming that there was no one around, and no one was following and monitoring, a slightly crazy smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. It's fine now, but it's not okay to be too rational or too calm. Some things can only be seen and heard more clearly if you lose your reason to a certain limit. Thinking of this, he opened a hidden compartment on the belt and took out a bottle of medicine inside. Even as a trainee investigator, Fang Xian received most of the supplies an investigator should be equipped with. Well, he hasn't got a gun license for the time being, but he still got some psychotropic drugs in his hands early. Among them, there are not only drugs to stabilize the spirit and maintain sanity, but also drugs to quickly stop bleeding and suppress pain. There is even a banned drug that actively loses sanity. These are equipped to deal with various emergencies. In fact, even Fang Xian was very curious about the efficacy and ingredients of these small pills. He guessed that although investigators seldom use supernatural power, this kind of drug is obviously not something that can be processed by ordinary laboratories, and some unscientific ingredients must be added to it. Fang Xian didn't bother to take care of it, he just needed to know that these medicines were very effective and the side effects were not too big. That's enough. At this moment, he poured out a white tablet and swallowed it under his tongue. Boom! Boom! When the pill melted, he suddenly heard the sound of his own heart beating, roaring in his cochlea. The world around slowly began to rotate, and the patches of white and gray, blue and green colors became more vivid and publicized, and began to mix and blend. Even if he didn't look at the attribute bar, Fang Xian knew that his sanity must have dropped a lot. At this point, immediately begin to recall the statue. In this state, it was as if he was facing the weird statue, even the worms that had turned into strands of hair, and the subtle lines on his body, could be seen very clearly. Ho ho, vomit. In the alley, Fang Xian kept panting, and suddenly pressed against the wall, and began to vomit. After the overwhelming uncomfortable feeling, his thinking became calm instead, which let him know that the time limit of that drug had passed. After all, it is a special product for investigators, and it must be the kind that temporarily reduces sanity and recovers immediately afterwards. He stood up, tidied his clothes, and saw the pen and notepaper in his hands. On the sticky note, there are also a few lines of short poems in very scrawled handwriting. It's a hymn to the giant worm. The worm turns into hair and whiskers, and merges with you in the dream, making you hear the sigh of the night. Crazy sea waves, huge gasps, tearing apart the worm's body, because one worm dies, and 1,000 worms come back to life. Fang Xian recited silently, and could feel the dark power contained in the short poem. Well, it's true that it's not the same as the spell I obtained before, the life force in the darkness. This feeling is a little strange. He recalled the 3 mantras he created. Among them, the immortal psalm can be regarded as his real name poem, but it has been mixed with other powers, and the effect is unknown. It has been verified that it can release special spirits and attack the enemy. And the bird with broken wings needs to absorb pain in order to exert its strength, transform its spirit, and become sharp and aggressive. But Fang Xian vaguely felt that the actual purpose of this incantation should be for summoning. As for the final worm hymn, the casting conditions and effects are unknown, but the guess should be biased towards life. Maybe it is a healing spell. Actually, these dark spells, one counts as the other, are not good products. After using them for a long time, they will definitely change the mental state of the user unconsciously, and become a fanatical believer in an evil existence. The reason why I'm fine is because the personality is still there, and I can hold it. No wonder other investigators don't recommend using spells unless necessary. He put away the note with the spell on it, walked to the street, and found a public phone booth. After stuffing a coin into it, Fang Xian dialed a number. I'm trainee investigator Roca, looking for investigator Love. At this point, he had obtained the secret of the worm, and the rest of the supernatural cases would naturally be reported to the investigators. As for why not process first and create later? After all, the danger level of these dark things has not been confirmed yet, and Love may not agree with Roca to read them, so it is better to get the benefits first. Roca, I'm Love, what's the matter? On the opposite side, a calm voice came. I seem to have encountered a supernatural case. Fang Xian quickly talked about the sculpture exhibition. Damn. Where are you? Wait for me, don't act without authorization. Love cursed and hung up the phone hastily. Not long after, an old-fashioned car sped up and stopped right at Fang Xian's feet. Love got out of the car cursingly. You boy, how can you encounter such a thing on vacation? Actually, I would also like to know. Fang Xian shrugged. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this, chapter 389 Worms. Congratulations to the Lord in White, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like the Lord of Reincarnation, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 391. Reincarnation Lord, find the latest chapter. The vast majority of the investigators of the Keeper of Secrets are ordinary people, but if we really want to divide them, we can still divide them into levels. Watching Luo Fu open the trunk of the vehicle and begin to equip weapons, Fang Xian thought silently. This is based on his insinuations during this period, and his own speculation. Trainee, formal, senior, elite, legend. Needless to say, the trainee investigators are just a group of rookies. Of course, there may be some outstanding talents hidden among them. Official investigators, on the other hand, can solve some common supernatural power cases through cooperation. A senior investigator with a clear mind, a strong physique, and subtle insight, who is qualified to investigate alone, can often solve a supernatural power case by himself, slightly involving spells or other supernatural power content. Elite investigators, the backbone of the Keeper organization, generally involved in supernatural forces, perhaps possessing some supernatural items, have the ability to solve most cases. As for the last legendary investigator, he is the trump card of the Secret Keeper organization. He must have supernatural power, have a terrible influence, know the secrets hidden in the depths of the world, and perhaps have direct connections with some extraordinary creatures. According to my classification, maybe Love can be considered a senior investigator? Have the ability to solve a supernatural case alone? Fang Xian was slightly distracted, and received a revolver from Love. Take it, the two of us will solve this case. Love bit the bullet, kept reloading the magazine, and put two revolvers in his waist. Your gun license has been obtained, so, take it, remember the content of firearms practice? No problem. Fang Xian skillfully opened the clip, checked the bullet, and closed it again. The target is in the exhibition, what should we do? He followed Love to the outside of the exhibition hall, and asked curiously, should we sneak in at night? No. According to your description, some people have already seen that sculpture, and there may be problems, it must be resolved as soon as possible. Love showed a smile, just wait and watch the show. Fang Xian waited for a few minutes, and suddenly heard a siren. Fire alarm. Evacuate the audience. A group of police officers in black uniforms with a six-pointed star pinned to their chests rushed into the exhibition hall and began to disperse the crowd. Not long after, the originally lively exhibition suddenly became empty, and the perimeter was cordoned off. Fang Xian noticed that those police officers only evacuated the exhibition hall and did not rush into Duan's workshop, apparently communicating with the Keeper in advance. No, maybe the Keeper is the official agency, no, or, officially supported private institutions. If a government controls the Keeper of Secrets, it is impossible not to study supernatural power, which is not in line with the Keeper's concept of restraint. Therefore, Fang Xian guessed that the Secret Keeper and the official probably had a cooperative relationship and were very close. Okay, it's time for us to play. Love found an empty corner, and together with Fang Xian, he went through the window and entered the exhibition hall. In the empty hall, the footsteps of two people became more and more clear. Fang Xian took the lead and came outside Duan's studio. It's really, so great, so shocking. In the studio, that group of people hadn't left yet. They seemed to be immersed in their own small world, oblivious to everything happening outside. Oral sedative. Love gestured, took a small red pill from his belt, and stuffed it into his mouth. Immediately, holding guns in both hands, he rushed in. Ladies, gentlemen, the tour is over, let me out. Studio interior. Men and women are like sculptures, standing there motionless, not willing to take their eyes off the statues. Don't you think, isn't this great? Devon looked fascinated, stroking the half-finished statue and looking at Love. Don't you think, isn't this great? In the studio, other people spoke at the same time. Either sweet, or gentle, or old, or sharp voices, like small knives, kept piercing Love's mind. What? Even with the spirit strengthened by drugs, Love couldn't help covering his head and half kneeling on the ground, feeling that he lost even the strength to pull the trigger. At this moment, a spherical thing rolled in and exploded violently, emitting a large amount of smoke. This is Fang Xian, who was covering outside the door, saw that something was wrong, and immediately threw a powerful hypnotic bomb in according to the previous plan. Chi-chi. Amidst the white mist, the sound of a person falling to the ground sounded. Love felt that the influence of the babbling weakened by half, stood up, and pointed the pistol at Devon, who had not fallen asleep. Not being put down by the hypnotic bomb means that this person has been eroded by the dark force and has undergone certain mutations. He is no longer an ordinary human being and must be taken seriously. Put your hands up, he yelled, or I'll blow your head off. Tell me, who asked you to make the statue? No one asked me to make it, but I wanted to complete this great work. Duan's expression was both dazed and proud. I learned of its existence from the Capro manuscript. It is a perfect creation, the art of the gods. It is still short of the last process, and it is about to be completed. Is it a supernatural case that broke out by accident, without organization? A person already insane has no concept of falsified testimony. Love subconsciously chose to believe, heaved a sigh of relief. At the same time, he saw Devon ignored his warning, picked up the carving knife in his hand, and seemed to continue with the sculpture. Without hesitation, Love pulled the trigger directly. Boom! Amidst the loud noise, Devon's head exploded like a watermelon. The next moment, Love's expression changed drastically. He saw that there were no white or red brains in Duan's exploded head, but flesh worms that were constantly struggling and wriggling. These bugs twisted and climbed quickly, and came to Devon's shoes, crawled along his trousers, across his thighs, chest, and crawled to the broken neck of the hideous neck, and began to huddle and reorganize. A flesh-colored head grew back into Devon's face. See. This is the power of worms, the miracle of life. He looked wild. Every word he spoke was like a thin needle piercing into Love's mind. No, this is a supernatural force that guns cannot solve. Too careless, the degree of evil of this kind of power is beyond my imagination. I must ask the branch for help. Love stepped back quickly. But suddenly, he lost control of his body. The scene where those worms kept climbing and reorganized into a head subverted his normal thinking with extraordinary power, making his consciousness gradually blurred. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this, chapter 390 Vitality, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Lord of Reincarnation, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support. The Lord of Reincarnation. Author, Wen Xiaogong. Chapter 392. Reincarnation Lord, find the latest chapter. Love's eyes were blurred, as if he saw the turbulent darkness. In the darkness, there are a large number of worms twisting and wriggling. The dark worms continued to gather and turned into Devon's face. At this time, the young sculptor's face became extremely evil and cold, and his eyes were full of sick fanaticism. That is a passion for life, for art, for things beyond imagination. How can a fool understand greatness? In the darkness, a voice came. A pained expression appeared on Love's face. His limbs seemed to melt, and his body began to become slender, with worm knots growing, turning into a huge fleshy worm. The intensity of this darkness. Love muttered in his heart that he was about to lose the most important bottom line and enter the red line of losing his sanity. At this moment, there seemed to be thousands of birdsong in his ears. All kinds of bird calls gathered together and turned into a sentence. The bird with broken wings is my name, eat your pain to feed my heart. A spell, like a sharp bird's beak, pierced the darkness with precision. Love's consciousness returned to reality. He saw crooked figures on the ground, and Duan with a hideous face in front of him. Partner, this time, you must use the power of the spell. Behind him, Fang Xian took a step forward and chanted loudly. I have gone through rebirth and death, but I can't reach the other shore. Death comes chasing after the shadows, without youth you will not perish. This psalm will live on and give you immortality. As a high-level existence. Fang Xian did not simply copy the mantra. He transformed a certain amount of dark spiritual power with the spell of Bird of Broken Wings, and immediately began to inject it into the immortal psalm. As for the 3 lines of the immortal psalm, he felt that the second line was the sharpest and the most offensive weapon. So he injected the bullet mostly into the second sentence. Death comes chasing after the shadows, without youth you will not perish. Along with the chanting, there seemed to be shadows creeping on the ground, sweeping towards Devon quickly. As soon as Devon stopped reaching for the sculpture, his whole body seemed to swell and disintegrate into squirming flesh worms. Ah, is this your power? It is equally magnificent, and it also belongs to greatness. Without youth, you will not die in withering. Fang Xian looked at Duan and began to repeat for the 3rd time. Wither. Wither. The desolate and stern ending echoed back and forth in the studio. The sharp notes seemed to turn into small knives, cutting off pieces of flesh and blood from Duan's body. After the flesh and flesh fell to the ground, they immediately turned into struggling flesh worms, but they died one after another and exploded one by one. When Fang Xian's transformed spirit of pain was exhausted, Duan on the opposite side had turned into a scrawny, mummy-like skeleton. The skeleton stretched out its right hand, as if it still wanted to touch the half-finished sculpture. In the name of the Keeper of Secrets. Love, who had already got up, was holding the silver pendant, and the muzzle of the other hand rested on Devon's forehead. Boom! Gunshots rang out. This time there was no accident, blood spattered all over the wall behind Devon. The headless body fell down, and there was no more movement. Breathing heavily, Love picked up a piece of oilcloth and covered the sculpture, then turned to look at Fang Xian. Roca, how do you feel? Well enough. Fang Xian clutched his forehead, pretending to have a headache. Well, you take these people who are sleeping on the ground out first. Remember not to let anyone go, they all need to be investigated and screened. Love said, and asked nervously, how do you feel mentally? If you can't, just take medicine. Do you have the desire to write? No. Fang Xian smiled sincerely, I seem to only react to those mysterious items from the falling star cult. This can make him much less dangerous, so he naturally doesn't mind pretending. That's good, but I will clean the battlefield here. The things here are of high standard, and you are not suitable for touching them at the moment. Love seemed relieved. No problem. Fang Xian nodded, and dragged a rich businessman with a big belly out of the studio. He is very clear. The dark forces involved in the giant worm should be very powerful. Even just the influence on Duan made the sculptor not only obtain a certain degree of immortality, but also mastered terrible spiritual power, which even the investigators who had taken tranquilizers could not sustain. It can be seen from this that the statue, as well as Capro's manuscript, have such extraordinary power. This level of danger and secrecy has far exceeded the authority of a trainee investigator like Roca. So, if I hadn't peeked a little at the beginning, I'm afraid I won't be able to touch it again for a long time. The Capro manuscript, I feel that the most important thing on it may be the hymn to worms I wrote. Fang Xian, who has studied for a period of time, is very clear. Humans cannot comprehend that evil and horror. Therefore, whether it is cultists, artists, or other researchers, the greatness they understand and feel is originally a very abstract and one-sided thing. In addition, most of them have problems with their sanity and spirit, and it is normal to have hallucinations and logical confusion. The research papers, classics, manuscripts written by them are mostly disordered, chaotic, full of typos and fallacies. Even, different people will interpret different content, and maybe they can all produce some effects. Although he has not read the Capro manuscript, he can guess that it must be something of this kind. The words on it are confusing and logical, mixed with various conjectures and hand-drawn draft patterns. Ordinary people may feel dizzy at the sight of it, but those with high enough inspiration can get some inspiration from it. And Fang Xian himself obtained the most core mysterious knowledge through the reverse analysis of his own personality through psychic communication, and compiled it into a poetic form that humans can understand. This is the most precious mantra. Perhaps other researchers, facing the Capro manuscript for a lifetime, could not study the content. Also, even if the keeper of the secret researches the results, the effect may not be as good as my spell, but the price is also very high. After this battle, Fang Xian had a deeper understanding of the power of worms. Supernatural power needs sacrifice, needs price. Bird with broken wings needs pain, immortal psalm needs spiritual power that tends to be dark, and hymn of worms, it probably needs nothing but spirit in addition to strength, there is vitality. This is an inexplicable feeling, but Fang Xian is very determined. For the convenience of reading next time, you can click favorite below to record this, chapter 391 research, reading record, and you can see it next time you open the bookshelf. If you like The Lord of Reincarnation, please recommend this book to your friends, QQ, blog, WeChat, etc. Thank you for your support.